Okay, ask them to share.
For the folks online, can you hear me? Okay, we got a yes, we got a confirmation.
Okay.
How's the volume for that? Does that sound good?
Yeah. Is that on? Is Dawn talking? Yeah, but I can't see him.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for showing up. So this is our second last meeting before our summer break, and it sounds like it'll be a pretty good one. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to start with the land acknowledgement. So the town of Cobourg respectfully acknowledges that we are located in the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. The town of Cobourg respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations have been stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters, and that today remain vigilant over their health and integrity for generations to come. We are all treaty people. Just so some news. Okay, yep. One of our first news items would be the collecting donations for turtle rescues. So it is a turtle themed presentation tonight. And you may have noticed a collection jar on the way in. Our speaker, Don Scallen, is a major advocate for turtles in Ontario, and we are hoping to raise some money for local turtle charities. If you haven't already, please consider putting a donation in the jar. We'll probably have that available for at the end of the presentation too. So next item would be our letter to town council. So the Willow Beach field naturalists submitted a letter to the Cobourg Town Council voicing our concerns about the rezoning of the school field down by the waterfront nature park. There was a town council meeting on April 30th to hear citizens' concerns on the subject, and apparently it was a pretty busy one. Richard Pope, are you in the audience today? Do you want to say anything on that, or?
Well, just say something very briefly. It was just
Richard, sorry, can you come up to the mic so that the Zoom people can hear you?
brief isn't my long suit, but I will be.
That's okay.
Probably most of you know that on Durham Street, there's a green park playing field there. And the town last month voted to change it to high density housing and put it on the open market immediately for sale with the idea of putting up high density housing 3 to 8 stories high. And there was a substantial movement against this, and we managed to end up getting without a newspaper, it's really hard to get the people, on your side. But we managed to get about 100 or 200 people in the end, and we had a large contingent last night at the council meeting, and we visited most of the councilors individually, and we did what we could and wrote letters. There were about 90 or 100 letters. This is all on the town website if you're interested and want to check it out. And the long story short, when they came to the vote, our mayor, this was one day before he became a super mayor, which gives him veto power, and he only needs 1/3 of his council from now on anything he wants to do. But all 6 members of the council voted against the bylaw. So it's gone back into consideration again. There will be widespread public consideration of what should be done with it. It's going to basically, we want it to remain some kind of green space. There's all kinds of options on what it could be, an arboretum, or butterfly gardens and stuff. It's just north of the boardwalk, contiguous to the boardwalk. So keep an eye on that, because it's going to be an issue over the next while. It will come back up again, and there's nothing the mayor would like better than to get high density, high story housing crammed in there from the boardwalk right to the north end, but it ain't gonna happen over our dead bodies. So that was what it was about last. Thanks, Matt, for giving me a chance.
Thank you. Just one more thing there, Richard. So, one thing you guys may not know is that Richard has recently accepted the Coburg Major Environmental Civic Award on Tuesday from Mayor Lucas, or Super Mayor Lucas. His efforts have led directly to the creation of the waterfront park, so that's some seriously good work there. So thank you for that. Oh, yes, okay, so for our next meeting, which would be our last one till the summer break, it's gonna be that members night meeting that we had last year. Received a lot of positive feedback in regards to that one. So we're gonna be doing that again this year to round off sort of the spring season before our break. So that's on May 30th. And anyone who wants to is encouraged to participate by submitting any of the photos that you have taken. And details of how to do that will be sent out tomorrow, I assume by email. We'll also have a fun activity at this meeting, so that's pretty interesting. And you'll enjoy refreshments and space to socialize and get to know each other. So remember to register for that one. As always, it seems to go pretty quick, the registration. So keep an eye out for that. And I will have sightings.
Marina asked me earlier this week to send a list of birds that I wanted to have on the sightings. I think I sent it on Monday or Tuesday. There's been such a lot of migration since then. Everybody's lists have changed, but we have just a sample of the things that we've had. Okay, this was a spectacular visitor to Coburg. The yellow-headed blackbird visited the Simon's garden in the east end of Coburg. It was just there for one day. Roger and I went to try and see it, and it didn't turn up while we were there, but it visited several times. Yellow-headed blackbird is fairly common on the prairies, around the sloughs of the prairies, and I did a feature article on it that it'll be in the next curlew, but it's pretty unusual in Ontario. The closest breeding records are around the marshes around Lake St. Clair. So this was a special visitor, yeah. Then everybody's been seeing orioles this week. Both Baltimore, these are Sherwood's pictures. It's both Baltimore, and on the right side of the picture is an orchard oriole that he also saw. Sherwood and Helga are really lucky because they live right at the lake south of Grafton. So everything hits their place before it hits anything else. Actually, Sherwood has cut a pane out of the window in their kitchen so that he can put his camera in it to make pictures. Yeah. When he's not taking pictures, it's a little plywood plaque, but anyway. Rose-breasted grosbeak. Anybody have rose-breasted grosbeaks this week? Have you had? Marina's had lots. Yeah, Matt? Roger's been saying, is there a rose-breasted grosbeak in the garden, but it hasn't happened yet. But... Oh, you heard one this morning. Usually we get one or two in the garden. Anybody else have a rose-breasted? No? They're common. And ruby-crowned kinglets. Little teeny birds, they weigh about 5 grams, soaking wet. So, and they don't stay still very long, but they have an incredible song. When they sing, you know that they're around. And many, many have been passing through. White-throated sparrows. I hope everyone's had white-throated sparrows. Yeah, They were singing in our yard when we left this afternoon. And there are two forms of white-throated sparrows. This one is what's called the white form. There's another white morph. There's another one's called the tan morph. It has nothing to do with sex or age or anything. And apparently, Bruce Falls, in his studies with many generations of graduate students at Algonquin Park, determined that the most successful breeding strategy of white-throated sparrows is if a tan one and a white one mate. It doesn't matter whether this one is male or female. If there are two white ones, they're both too type A and they fight all the time and they're not so successful. If they're two tan ones, they're just a little too laid back. Anyway, I'm very grateful to Bruce and his students. And I was saying this to somebody at a banding demonstration that Roger and I were doing, and Bruce walked up to my table. But he really acknowledged his graduate students, which not all professors do. Yeah. Fox sparrow. Richard, you've had one of those visit your garden. And two? Yeah.
20 years, I've only had them twice, and it was this year I had two.
Wow.
For the Zoom people, Richard's had them 2 years two this year, and out of 20 years, he's had them visit twice, yeah. Anybody else have fox sparrows? It's a big sparrow, it's very rufous overall. Yeah, nests a lot further north, but interesting. And this is one of the early, this is a yellow-rump warbler, it's one of the early warblers arriving. Yeah, and they're singing, there are lots of them around. Yeah. The pine warbler, also one of the earlier arrivals, but some of the later ones are coming through since I talked to Marina about this. How many of you had in your yard, Marina?
Black and white, palm,
Black and white palm,
yellow rump,
yellow rump,
perula came by today.
perula. Some people about ovenbird.
Ovenbird,
Ovenbird?
ovenbird this morning,
Yeah. Yeah, so there are lots of, if you see a little flit in the bushes in your backyard, look, because it could be something interesting.
And a blue-winged warbler in the forest.
Which?
And a blue-winged warbler.
Blue-winged warbler in the forest. Yeah. And palm warbler, another one of the relatively early arrivals. And barn swallows, the swallows are coming. Roger's seen roughwing, lots of tree swallows around. Barns, sorry? Bank swallows. If you're in the right habitat, bank swallows down around Candlewick, because there's a bank at Lake Ontario that's very suitable for them to nest. So keep a look at your, yeah.
And there are cliff swallows at the Leslie Street Spit in Toronto. We were there 2 days ago, and they're all nesting.
Cliff swallows at the Leslie Street Spit in Toronto. So the next time we go to Wesleyville, we've got to check the building because they nested there last year. And on the what's called the powerhouse, which has never generated any power. But there were 2 or 3 nests that were successful. There have been nests before, but we weren't sure quite whether they were successful. But the ones that they nested on the north side that were kind of tucked into little corners of the building that had a little more protection from the weather, that I think were successful last year. Yeah, northern roughwing swallow, they nest under bridges a lot. They nest sometimes on the corners of the bank swallow colonies too. Yeah. And because of our speaker tonight, I've included this one. This big snapping turtle was seen on Stony Creek Marsh on County Road 18 last week. And by Jean Huffman, she reported another one today. So, and these big guys, they're not guys, these are females. They're crawling around for a place to nest. If it's the place that I think it is, there's an active group around Rice Lake that puts out a turtle protective screens so that if they're building nests there, they may be protected. But I thought it would be worthwhile to see this one tonight. Anybody else have anything else that they want to tell about? Yeah, Vince.
I don't know if you know, but trumpeter swans spend the winter here now in Rice Lake.
Trumpeter swans spending the winter on my site?
Yeah.
Yes, I did know, but
Yeah, okay, and also right now, it looks like they're nesting, I believe, okay, because I'm seeing, today I saw a single, okay? Yesterday there was a pair, okay, along the south shore, just west of Close Point. And they got, I'm assuming they're nesting, okay, because it wouldn't be two together like that one.
yeah, they could. There's lots of marshes that are suitable for them to nest. So the trumpeter swan population is increasing a little bit.
Oh, another thing too, I don't know if you know, but Norris's place on Close Point.
Okay.
What's the first name? I can't think of it. A lot of people have been into her house. Her place is for sale now. And also, Eva Nichols' place is for sale on there too. Yeah, but the price on them are ridiculous, 175 million, 1.75 million and 1.4 million together.
If anybody has a burning desire to live on Close Point and be Vince's neighbor, it's a really interesting place for biology. And you see the bald eagles all the time.
Well, see, the problem is, right now, whenever I looked out my window, I'd see eagles. There used to be what they call a candelabro tree, like with the branches going up. That tree's down off of Black Island, so you can't see them there. And the other tree, it's only seen during, the Black Island one was only seen during, after the leaves fall. Okay, the one on Spook Island, that you could see them anytime there, but that was an elm and it's dead for about 30 years. It finally fell over, so I don't see any. I see very few eagles now.
So the bald eagles' nest trees have fallen over because they got old and rotten.
Yeah.
So maybe they're nesting other places. I know that they've been nesting somewhere downstream from Hastings for some time. And there are bald eagles seen regularly at the west side portal. So I suspect that they're nesting somewhere on the West Eagle property. Yeah, Jerry.
I saw them on Wednesday, I saw bald eagle at Wesley Hill.
Yeah,
And along with the ospreys, which I think are nesting there and again. And we did see a trumpeter swan fly over as well, but the bald eagles seem fairly frequently.
bald eagles have been fairly regular, and I talked to Albert Schultz the other day, who lives, he lives east of Port Britain, but west of Port Hope. But he says he sees a pair of bald eagles regularly at his place. He lives right on the water. And the trumpeter swans were there last summer on the big pond. The osprey didn't nest there last year, but they had for several years. A couple of years. One of the birds was lost, and they've taken a couple of years to get a pair that is interested in nesting there anymore. So happy May. This is birders heaven.
Yes.
This month.
Well, it's certainly going to be an exciting month coming up for everybody. And we have a couple of outings planned, one on Sunday morning for fledgling new birders at Skullthorpe Marsh. And so we're looking forward to that. That'll be at 9 a.m. The weather should be great. There won't be any rain, for sure. Okay. I guess I missed the past outings. We had a Merlin primer on April 3rd, and we had 10 people attending online Zoom meeting, and that was great. Learning some of the features of Merlin. There have been some changes, some enhancements, and it's worked beautifully. The Westfield Earth Day cleanup. What a great day that was, and we had how many volunteers were there? I don't see Kenny here. 60 people out, and 8 or 9 teams cleaning up, and there was just a massive amount of refuse that was taken off the site. Several hundred tires, I believe, and all kinds of crap and truckloads of it. Other things coming up, the spring ephemeral outing. Still don't have a date yet. We're just waiting to find out when the flower is going to pop in the woods. And so we're looking at Proctor Park in Brighton in the next week or two. And that'll be, Lori Hill will be leading that event. June the 3rd, if you are interested in doing some a bird count at Wesleyville, that's the day to do it. Then following that, June the 7th and 8th will be the Northumberland bird count. You can talk with Roger about that if you would like to participate. Other things that are coming up, and for some reason or other missed May the 10th, the Hazel Bird Day is coming up at Hazel Bird Sanctuary. On May the 13th, there's a first light outing at Lone Pine Marsh Bird Marathon. It's part of the start of the Bird Marathon for Northumberland Land Trust. And on June the 7th, Northumberland Land Trust is having a hike at Willow Lane Nature Reserve. That's a new nature reserve. And then on June 10th, a moth morning at Bonnebacker Nature Reserve. 6 a.m. Get up early, sunshine. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard, and thanks, Elizabeth. So let's move on to our main presentation for the night. So I'd like to introduce our speaker, Don Scallen, or Scallen. I immediately forgot, so apologies for that. This presentation is a deep dive into the natural history of Ontario's native turtles. Don Scallen is a lifelong naturalist, turtle lover, and he's a regular speaker of all manner of related topics, everything to do with nature. Don has kayaked throughout Southern Ontario, learning the habits, distribution, and behavior of our native turtles. He's contributed hundreds of records to the turtle tally program from the Toronto Zoo. He also partnered with the Toronto Zoo and the Ontario Ministry of Transport for a road mortality mitigation project, which is pretty awesome. If you guys know turtles, you know that they're not very good with roads. So that's excellent to see. And all speaking fees will be directed to turtle conservation organizations from this presentation. So these include Scales Nature Park, which is in Oro-Medonte, and the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center, which is in Peterborough, Ontario, which is where I'm from. And local turtle conservation groups in the province. So without further ado, welcome our speaker.
Really nice to be here, folks. We'll stand by the mic in a moment. What a beautiful time of year, just spectacular. And we had some evidence of that in the sightings that we just saw. And that gives me an idea for my naturalist club. It's great to have the images right up there. That was super. Also nice to see some familiar faces in the audience. Don Davis. I met Don probably 15 or so years ago, and everybody knows that Don Davis is one of the monarch experts, not only in Canada, but in North America. And then my friend Catherine Pyman is here as well. And I rendezvous with Catherine every spring at a pond north of Georgetown. I live in Georgetown. And Catherine drives all the way down to Peterborough, right? All the way down from Peterborough, like 2 hours, to spend hours and hours and hours in this special pond that's just full of spotted salamanders and the endangered Jefferson salamanders. So it's very easy for me to get to this pond, but poor Catherine has to drive 2 hours to get there. I think she would say that it was worth it though. What amazing animals salamanders are. But tonight, of course, the topic is turtles, Ontario turtles to be specific. They are imperiled, as just about everybody in the room is aware. They are among the most imperiled animals, not only in Ontario, not only in Canada, not only North America, but worldwide. And that's a darn shame because they've been around for millions and millions. They go back before the dinosaurs, the initial turtles in planet Earth. So we need to do everything we can at this juncture in time to ensure that our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are able to interact with these amazing creatures. Everybody knows it's the painted turtle. That is the most frequently observed turtle in the province of Ontario. And I'll be talking about each of these turtles as the presentation continues. Blanding's turtles are just as widespread as the painted turtles, but nowhere near as common. Perhaps at one time, they might have been, well, they were definitely more abundant at one time, but the Blanding's turtles are wanderers. That puts them in significant peril from, of course, road mortality. Snapping turtles are the other ones that people in the audience are probably very familiar with. And in fact, we saw an image that was included in the sightings. The northern map turtle is doing well in the province of Ontario, primarily because it's a big water species and it's not a wanderer. The amazing, the stunning eastern spiny softshell turtle, which is now confined only to southwestern Ontario, the Thames River, for example, Sydenham River. And we should be advancing here. There we go. Wood turtle, which once was fairly widespread in the province of Ontario. Now it's found in disjunct little islands of habitat in the province, really gravely imperiled, as is the spotted turtle. And then finally, we have the stinkpot, or the musk turtle, eastern musk turtle. This is a small species, not doing badly in some areas of the province. So more on all of those species as we proceed. I've tried to avoid a lot of verbiage in my slides, obviously to spare you in the reading, but I think this is quite necessary. All of the species in Ontario, we have 8 extant living species in the province of Ontario. All of them are considered species of risk now. So the lowest level of species of risk, according to Caserio, Committee on the Status of Species of Risk in Ontario, is special concern. And you can see the turtles that are indicated at that level. So the musk turtle, the snapping turtle, map turtle, painted turtle. But then we get to the endangered category. And endangered, as everybody in the audience knows, means that these turtles are really in grave danger as we move forward. If conditions that are driving their populations down are not corrected, then they can disappear. And they include the blandings, the softshell, spotted, and the wood turtle. And then we have an extirpated turtle. Now, some of you in the audience might not be aware that box turtles were at one time indigenous to Southern Ontario. Now that is that's the decision of Caserio and COSEWIC, which is the national body that assesses these animals. It is now generally believe that we had eastern box turtles at one time. So the Midland painted turtle, the one that everybody knows, it is a quiet water body specialist. So it can be found in just about any body of water. It in rivers, lakes. It prefers the weedy, quiet margins. It remains fairly abundant throughout the province. It is a low oxygen tolerant species, and I'll talk to that a little bit more in a moment. They are inveterate basking turtles. So first thing in the spring, and many of you in the audience have probably already seen these turtles basking this year. They'll be out in logs, rocks, etc. Like most of our turtle species, the basking is more common in the springtime. They have to ramp up their metabolisms. The females have to energize themselves to be able to lay eggs. But they will bask throughout the year. They'll bask right into the fall. This lovely creature is a western painted turtle. So the painted turtles that occur in the Cobourg area and certainly through southern Ontario are the Midland painted turtles. Up in the far northwest of the province, think Kenora, Lake of the Woods, etc. The western painted turtles are found slightly bigger than the Midland painted turtles, and they have these beautiful, beautiful plastrons, the lower shell. So I mentioned that painted turtles are able to tolerate low oxygen conditions, and that has ramifications for where turtles can live. These are the turtles that can also tolerate almost a complete absence of oxygen in the water over the winter. So snapping turtles, spotted turtles, Blanding's turtles have that same ability. And that allows them to live in eutrophic waters that do not have a lot of oxygen. So they can be found in marshes and farm ponds and that sort of thing. And they're able to survive the winter. These turtles, the map turtle, soft shell, musk, and the wood turtle, if you could put them in those bodies of water in the summertime, and they might fare just fine, but they would die over winter. These four species need lots and lots of oxygen in the wintertime. So they need to be in generally larger bodies of water, often rivers, that sort of thing, that give them the oxygen that they need. So staying with the painted turtle for a little while. Painted turtles, again, a quiet water species. They are wanderers, and this puts painted turtles and several other species that we have, of course, in this day and age, at great risk. At one time, turtles could wander and they would be sure to encounter another wetland eventually. That's just simply not the case today, is it? Particularly in our urban areas. They still have that propensity to wander. They can't help it. It's evolutionarily built into what they are. So for example, I go to a park near Orangeville called Forks of the Credit Provincial Park, and there's several hundred painted turtles that live in this kettle lake. In the springtime, several of those turtles will end up in this vernal pond, an ephemeral wetland, which dries in the summertime. And they have to walk approximately 300 meters up a hill and then down a hill to get to that temporary wetland. And they are there to avail themselves of the seasonal resources that that temporary wetland offers. So perhaps tadpoles, dragonfly larvae, that sort of thing. And then they have to climb out of the drying wetland and return to the kettle pond. So this happens throughout the range of the painted turtles. They wander. Blanding's turtles do that big time, and that's one of the reasons they're in such trouble now. When I kayak large bodies of water, this is the Grand River down near Lake Erie. I know to look for the painted turtles on weed mats in quiet embayments along the Grand River. They don't like the turbulent waters in midstream. Go back for a moment, if I can. Surviving winter in the nest. This is really cool. So many painted turtles overwinter in the nest. So they hatch in the fall, come out of their eggs in the fall, but they do not exit the soil and walk into a wetland until springtime. And it was long thought that perhaps they had the same ability of gray tree frogs or wood frogs to have an antifreeze in their system. Usually based on sugars, glycol, that sort of thing, which allows their blood to tolerate temperatures that are lower than zero. But it turns out with the painted turtle hatchlings, they demonstrate a supercooling of the blood. So the temperatures can drop considerably below zero, perhaps -5, -6, -7 in those nests, and their blood will remain liquid. And this has to do with the fact that ice, for ice to form, it needs something called the nucleating agent. It has to form around in our atmosphere. For snow and rain, it might be a mote of dust or a spore. And there's none of that in that newly hatched turtle. The blood doesn't have any of those nucleating agents, so it can remain liquid far below zero. Another way that they can be killed if there's vibrations, if there's excessive vibrations on top of the nest, then that can shake the blood, and that's enough to make it freeze. But this amazing property allows them to survive generally very cold winters. The winter that we just had with lots of snow will help them as well. And then they come out at this time of year. So as I indicated at the beginning of the presentation, turtles are really in trouble. And the biggest reason would be habitat loss. And I want you to picture in your mind for a moment the city of Toronto. Everybody's familiar with the city of Toronto. Every square meter of the city of Toronto used to be turtle habitat. Every building that you see, every shopping mall, all the 401, all the highways, all the roads, that used to be turtle habitat. And they were everywhere on the landscape. I've already indicated that some of them are wanderers. It's not only where the wetlands are. So this is what we do, and we do that increasingly. And it is really quite shocking. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a multi-party organization called Vision 2100 that is advocating for the GTA. I don't know if you consider yourself GTA here, maybe a little bit outside the GTA, that the GTA grow from its current 8.2 million or so to 35 million by the end of this century. This is what they aspire to achieve. And there's absolutely no way you can do that without really compromising the natural systems that we have left. I don't care if you densify, but to get 35 million people in that space is, to my mind, insane. But this is what many of us seem to aspire to. Associated with the habitat loss, of course, is road mortality. And there's probably not a person in the room who hasn't seen a dead turtle at the side of the road. And that will be really happening about a month from now when the females come out to lay their eggs. And it's not only females, the males move too. But in the springtime and in that June, early July period, probably mostly females, many of them full of eggs. Subsidized predators, I should define that term. There are probably more raccoons now than there ever were, even before European settlement, because we've eliminated the raccoon's natural predators. There's no wolves left in southern Ontario. And we have also provided all sorts of food that the raccoons enjoy. You know, from the corn in our agricultural fields to the garbage that we dispose to bird feeders. This one's under a bird feeder. And yes, I do feed the birds. Poaching is another one. Now, this has particularly hit some of the really special, rarer species of turtles in the province fairly hard. And I'll talk a little about that as we go on. Subsidized predators I've already mentioned, and it's not only raccoons, but it's these other creatures, opossums as well. And research along the Thames and Sydenham and within Rondo Provincial Park has indicated that some years it's almost 100% of the nests. And of course, that's unsustainable. There are measures that are being taken within the Upper Thames Conservation Authority and certainly throughout the province now to try to protect those nests. Turtle conservation organizations, some of them have already been indicated. The money that the speakers fee tonight and any donations that we accrue will go to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre in Peterborough. I thought because I was coming to this part of Ontario, that would be the best place to send the money. These organizations are popping up throughout the province. It's a tremendously heartening grassroots effort to do something, anything, to help these imperiled animals. It is a very hopeful situation. And this is just an aside. I'm a writer, so I proposed to Ontario Nature that I write an article about this incredible vanguard movement that taps into just the goodwill of thousands and thousands of Ontarians. And the editor of the magazine got back to me and said, we took it to a board meeting and we found it just didn't have traction. So I don't get upset too often, but I got upset then and I got back to the guy. If this sort of thing doesn't have traction for a magazine, a nature magazine, what on earth does have traction? Maybe they'll come around eventually. It doesn't have to be me to write the article, but somebody, we need to publicize this. This is good news. So my local group, not my group, but the group in Halton Hills that does such wonderful work are called the Halton Hills Turtle Guardians. They will recover eggs that are laid in precarious situations and send them off to Scales Nature Park in Oro-Medonte, where they're hatched. And then every single hatchling will come back either in the fall or in the spring to the Turtle Guardians, and then they will release it precisely where they got the eggs or put it in the nearest wetland. They also will rescue turtles that have been struck by cars, and they'll get them off to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre in Peterborough. So it was the numbers for 2024 were much bigger than this. I need to change this. 51 turtle nests were protected in 2023, and 19 were excavated due to precarious placement of the eggs. That really ramped up last year, and they're expecting that this year, 2025, the numbers will be very much higher again. So these are the grassroots. None of these people are biologists. This is an opportunity for just ordinary folks like me and perhaps you guys to get out and help these creatures. So these are turtles that are being returned. They're very, very careful about it. I went out with them last year, and they put a turtle in this jerry-built container attached to a pole, and they release it very carefully into the home wetland. So we'll move on to snapping turtles. And as a youth, when I was a little boy, I wandered Silver Creek in Georgetown. That was back in the days where you just sort of left in the morning and you came back for dinner. And your mom had no idea what you're doing. She just, just make sure you're back for dinner. And I remember distinctly finding this little tiny hatchling snapping turtle buried in the mud by Silver Creek. And I was just astonished. I didn't even know these things existed. And I've loved turtles from that day onward. They strike me, especially the snapping turtle, as prehistoric, as dinosaurs almost. So these snapping turtles are incredibly accepting of just any wetland at all. They're found in small ponds. They're found in the biggest of lakes, the biggest of rivers, little tiny creeks. And that is one reason that they're still doing reasonably well, although lots of them get whacked in the road. Another low oxygen tolerant species. I've discovered in my travels that some snapping turtles do not brumate. That's the reptile word for hibernation. They do not hibernate necessarily underwater. They can hibernate in wet seepage areas. This one was coming out of hibernation along the banks of the Maitland River in the springtime. They do bask quite frequently, the big ones at least, in the springtime. After that, not so much. They get much of their thermal needs taken care of just by floating in the water or sitting atop a weed mat. I've only seen this a couple of times in spring, in May this month. The mating occurs. So it can occur at other times as well, but perhaps more frequently at this time of year. And the males will fight, and they'll fight very vigorously. I'm still kicking myself. I was in my kayak when I witnessed this, and I should have done video. It was really quite a spirited struggle. These two have found each other, and they're mating on the banks of a pond. And this pond, just incidentally, it's just meters away from the QEW in the Hamilton area. There's a fence up that prevents them from walking onto the QEW, but snapping turtles, just given a little bit of habitat, can exist quite well in our urban areas. Snapping turtle eggs, like little ping pong balls, snapping turtle emerging. This is one of the reasons that doing something about the problems that afflict our turtle populations is worthwhile. It would be very difficult for any child to hold a little snapping turtle in his or her hands and not smile. This is, and it's not, of course, only turtles. It's the rest of the natural world, isn't it? We need to do it for these kids and for bigger kids, like you and I. The lifespan in the wild is poorly known, but they do lots of studies up in Algonquin Park. These creatures might live over 100 years old. So eastern musk turtle. I love these little fellas. This one was at Charleston Lake Provincial Park. If I want to see musk turtles, that's where I go. And they will bask, not as frequently as painted turtles. This is full size. This is a bruiser of a musk turtle. And regrettably, I only noticed this after I looked at my pictures. So I just held the turtle briefly, but it appears it might have a hook in its jaw. There's the Charleston Lake is a popular fishing area. And I wish I'd known it at the time. I would have tried to remove that. Intolerant of low oxygen levels in winter, it needs those bigger bodies of water with lots of oxygen. So basking, this one on a water lily tuber, Charleston Lake. This is Charleston Lake again. They're tiny when they hatch. And this is an interesting story. Now, it may or may not be reality, but it's interesting to ponder. So you might be able to read the text from where you are, but an archaeological dig found a shell of one of these turtles, and they at a former Peyton village on a tributary of the Pretty River south of Georgian Bay, and they found a hole drilled in the shell. And they suggested that maybe the turtle had been kept as a pet by the First Nations people. So some sort of twine fed through the hole of the shell. An interesting idea. We'll never know whether it was true or not. One of the most beautiful of our turtles and one of the most imperiled of our turtles is the spotted turtle, an incredibly cold hardy species. So I have friends and acquaintances in the herp community, and they were seeing these on warm days in March this year, and that is utterly typical. I wouldn't be surprised if the odd warm day in February, spotted turtles come out to bask. A low oxygen tolerant species, so they can be found in very quiet bodies of water, most frequently in my experience in really weedy bodies of water. That is full size. And this is a turtle that was once very much more widespread than it is now. Can't see it well, but a mating pair at one of the few wetlands in southern Ontario that still harbor this animal. If you go to a place like Long Point or Rondeau and you find a spotted turtle, almost all of them will be notched. Their carapace will be notched so that researchers can keep track of them from year to year to year to year. They are a very special species because they are present now in very low numbers. But maybe my favorite is this one, the wood turtle. Once found, I don't have records for this area, or haven't seen records from this area, but they were once found in Bronte Creek, Mimico, Humber River, probably the Creta River. In the area that I live, they're gone from those areas, not unsurprisingly. And they exist now in only one tiny spot in southwestern Ontario, which I had the privilege of going to earlier this week. Found some again. They've been eliminated from most of their habitat in southern Ontario. There are some areas, Algonquin Park and further north around the Sioux that still have perhaps some reasonable populations, but this is a creature in really big trouble. So at the location that I go to in southwestern Ontario, many of the turtles have transmitters on them. This allows the biologists to find them from year to year to year, and they can gain all sorts of information about how far the wood turtles move, where they go, etc. Wood turtles need a stream. All wood turtle populations are found along a home stream where they spend the winter, and then they disperse into the woods and meadows adjacent to that stream in the warm weather. In the population that I go to in southwestern Ontario, many of the wood turtles are injured. So this one is being hit by either a car or perhaps farm machinery. And something that the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center in Peterborough will tell you is that turtles are incredibly resilient, so they can recover from these wounds given time. And Ontario Turtle Conservation Center deals with hundreds of road injured turtles every year, and many of those can eventually go back. So they're doing really good work. Many of the turtles, again, at this southwestern Ontario population are missing limbs. This one missing the right fore or left forelimb. And that's due to the predators, subsidized predators. Now, of course, this happened, long before Europeans arrived in this continent, but it's probably more frequent now, again, because we've helped these predators live through our waste disposal and our agricultural fields and on. I came across one turtle here when I went out with Professor Ron Brooks from the University of Guelph that had lost both its back limbs, and it was still gamely pulling itself along the forest floor with its two front limbs, doing what it had to do to survive. It was rather heartbreaking and heartening at the same time. So as I indicated, wood turtles need a stream. I thought when I was growing up, I'd find wood turtles in the woods. Well, you can, but their home range is focused on a stream, and it can be a rather ordinary looking stream like the one that you see here. And you might be able to perceive the wood turtles in the images at the base of the stream or base of the screen. There's one there, and there's the same one there. This is a problem for wood turtles because at this time of year, they come out from their brumation, their hibernation. The first thing that they want to do is bask and get their metabolisms moving again. And they do that by the edge of the stream or in debris that is in the stream. And that makes them incredibly vulnerable to poachers. So poachers will they know the habits of wood turtles, and they'll walk a stream and simply collect them. They're not obscured by vegetation at this time of year. And at this particular site, Ron Brooks, who regrettably has passed away a few years ago, he would go there year after year after year with his biology classes, and they would tally the population, survey the population. And from one year to the next, in the early 2000s, the population dropped dramatically. So he postulated that there had been a large-scale poaching event that had occurred at this very spot. So they're doing what they can. The area is somewhat protected. Eggs are recovered, they're hatched, and the turtles are head started, so they're given a little bit of time to grow and then return to the population. So I've already mentioned poaching for the pet trade, and I've indicated that Ron Brooks discovered this dramatic population drop. This is interesting. So there's a spotted turtle, and in 2009, a Scarborough herbalist was arrested along the 401. And he was driving back from Walpole Island, and conservation officers found that he had 26 Blandings turtles in his van and one spotted turtle. The Blandings turtles were returned to the island. Spotted turtle died. But what blows my mind is that this person had 13 previous convictions for similar offenses. So we have to ask ourselves, was the law doing its job? Was the law suggesting to this gentleman, I use that advisedly, that perhaps he shouldn't continue to do it? And obviously it wasn't having the desired effect at all. He just went out time and time again, knowing that he was going to get a slap on the wrist. I believe this time he did get a little bit of jail time. But this is only one individual. This is only one person. And we have people in Southern Ontario who are quite comfortable going out and collecting our turtles And he planned to presumably use them in herbal medicines. But there's also turtles that are gathered that end up in restaurants in cities like Toronto. This is a little lighter story and quite an incredible one. You can see this online if you like. YouTube, I think, has a couple of videos about this. Wood turtles stomp for worms. Not all wood turtles, but some wood turtles. They use their front forelimbs or they bang their plastron on the ground. The worms come up, they grab the worms. Really, really cool. Now, this may or may not be true, but there has been some suggestion that this is a cultural practice. It's not found in all wood turtle populations in Eastern North America. It's found in some. So the suggestion is, although it seems a little bit of a stretch, that this habit might be passed on from wood turtle to wood turtle through a particular population. When they're not eating worms, they can eat fruit and mushrooms and in the water, fish and tadpoles, etc. The Eastern Spiny soft shell, if you want to see these, I don't think I'm giving away too much. In a room of naturalists, go to London, Ontario, and just go to any of it has to be a sunny day. Pick a sunny day anytime from May through October and go to London and go to the parks that are along the Thames River in London. That's the greatest concentrations of spiny soft shells I've found anywhere. They're doing very well there. They're doing well there in part because of an amazing guy named Scott Gillingwater, who decades ago started collecting eggs, hatching them, and then returning the nest, the young turtles into the Thames. And he's seen the populations ramp up. It's another one of the positive stories that we can hang on to. Intolerant of low oxygen levels, you're not going to find this in a pond, but you will find it in lakes and rivers. An interesting anecdote from the journals of the Moravian monks. This goes back to 1792, so it's a few years ago, who brought up a tribe of Delaware First Nations to London. There's a little town called Delaware. It's named after the Delaware First Nations. And they brought them up around the time of the Revolutionary War. Presumably, they might have been on the side of the Brits in the States, and they settled in Delaware. And this excerpt came from the journals of one of those Moravian monks. Hundreds of soft-shell turtles were scooped off floating logs to make a supper of real delicacy. These turtles were apparently gathered in an hour or two. So they were not doing anything wrong. They had to feed themselves. Turtles were abundant at that time, but this anecdote gives us an idea of just how many soft-shell turtles were in the Thames River a few hundred years ago. And not only the Thames River, but other parts of southern Ontario. They used to be found in the Hamilton area, for example, no longer. So they are doing reasonably well in the Thames River. And here's evidence of that. There's several soft shells and a concrete conduit that with a map turtle sitting on top of this soft shell. And another map turtle sitting on top of a soft shell. They make great basking platforms, the soft shells. This is not an aggressive posture. Lots of turtles will open up their mouth to thermoregulate, presumably when they're getting quite warm, they're in a basking situation, and that might help them cool down. It's rather a guess, but that's possibly why. This one has this soft shell has a red-eared slider basking on it. And then these are map turtles. So I mentioned Scott Gillingwater, and he was the one at the Upper Thames Conservation Authority, and he still is there. began protecting turtle nests with chicken wire cages. But then they found that the poachers were keen on those cages. They were excavating the eggs and presumably hatching the turtles out and selling them, I suppose, black market. So they discontinued protecting them with the cages, and instead they bring them into a lab now and they hatch them in the lab. This is a spiny softshell nest, and I'm responsible for the abandonment of that nest, and I'll try to explain. I was kayaking on the Canard River, which is just south of Windsor. And I looked to my left and I saw a spiny softshell on the bank laying her eggs. And I tried to just simply move on, but she was spooked. She abandoned the nest and ran into the water. And when I say run, spiny softshells can run. They're really fast on land, unlike most of our turtles. So I went over to the bank, got out of my kayak, and this is what I saw. I put that egg back in, covered it up, and I was there for 2 more days. So I came back the next day and the day after to see if the nest had been disturbed. It hadn't at that time. So I'm hoping that these eggs hatched successfully. The nest raiders, the predators, will typically raid the nest a few days after egg laying. That's when they can smell the eggs or the presence of the female the best. And there's a little turtle about to be released into the Thames River. The Blandings turtle. How many in the room have seen a Blandings turtle? That's excellent. Yeah. Quite still fairly common along the southern shield area, so the land in between Carden Plain. For those of you who go up for the birds at Carden and the wildflowers, Blandings turtles there, and a very wide range in Ontario. But as I indicated before, this is a turtle that wanders big time. They are another one, a low oxygen tolerant species, so they can overwinter in really quiet bodies of water. They use ephemeral wetlands in the spring like painted turtles do. And then there were 8. This is a headline in Paradise Found, a newsletter of the RBG back in 2011. This headline led to a story about one of the 9 remaining Blandings turtles in the RBG properties, Coots Paradise, dying. So their numbers are really down. There's still a couple there, and these turtles can live for a long, long time, but they're in really big trouble there and everywhere else along the northern Lake Ontario shoreline. There are some surprisingly, that have colonized Tommy Thompson Park at Leslie Street Spit. There's still a few in the Humber River marshes around Bloor Street area. And in the Rouge River Valley as well. This one was interesting. This is near where I live in North Halton. I was out to a friend's place who has property on the escarpment. And we were looking for salamander eggs in her vernal pool. And we looked up and lo and behold, there was a Blandings turtle basking on the shoreline of the vernal pool. She had lived there for 20 plus years, never ever seen a Blandings turtle. Despite their size, they can be quite cryptic, and they do move around a lot, as you'll see in a second. So I was privileged a number of years ago to go down to Brant County and track a radio tagged Blandings turtle. And she led me on a merry chase across this field, and you can see how far she went. And my job was to wait for her to dig her nest, and we would then protect the nest. But at midnight, I had to give up. She just kept walking. So this gives you an idea of why they're in such trouble. Because, there could be a couple of roads in between here and there, and the Blandings turtle wouldn't know. It's wandered for millennia, it's wandered for millions of years before there were ever roads and cars. So they bask in the springtime. It's usually very easy to distinguish them from the generally more common painted turtles. They have high domed shells. They have this wonderful yellow throat. And this is a male with a slightly concave shell. So 2008, I can't believe this, it's so long ago now. I was driving down to Long Point, and this is, I was in the Brantford area on Highway 24, and I saw up ahead on the road these lumps. And I knew immediately what I was looking at. I was looking at roadkill turtles. And I pulled over, and I counted probably 8 on the road. It was difficult to tell because some of them were just smashed to pieces. And they had been killed that morning, that very day on April 17th. So this was the first warm day in 2008, sunny. They came out, not only females, males and females, and they wanted to get from one side of Highway 24 to the other. So I felt sick to my stomach. I found 2 that were ready to cross from the east to the west. I took them over to the other side. And then when I got home, I contacted Bob Johnson at the Toronto Zoo, who used to run the turtle tally program there. He's now retired. And he said, call Ministry of Transport in London, which I did. And I connected with a lady there, and the MTO and Toronto Zoo got together. They decided that they were going to go down there within days, which they did, and I joined them down there. And the decision by MTO was that they were going to fit the bill for, first of all, some just temporary plastic fencing. But then the following year, they put in chain link fence. So this is 2009, spring of 2009, and there's the chain link fence. Luckily, there was a conduit from one side to the other, and the hope was that the turtles would use that to get from one side of Highway 24 to the other, to avail themselves of the habitat they obviously wanted to reach. But we didn't know. Nobody knew whether they would use that conduit. So they hired, the Toronto Zoo hired a gentleman named Brennan Caverhill, and he went down there, great guy. And he radio tagged several of the Blandings turtles in that population. He stayed there the entire summer. He came back in 2010, stayed the entire summer. And he also went around to every neighbor abutting that wetland, knocked on doors, smiled, great smile, really helps. And he asked if he could have access to their property to get a better grip on the population. And everybody agreed. All the neighbors were on board with this idea. So he eventually counted, I think there's about 64 here. He named several of them, named them after all of those nice neighbors who allowed them onto their properties. And he named this particularly handsome turtle, Don, after me. So I was quite honored. But in all seriousness, this turned out to be a really, really positive thing. I've gone down there a couple of times a year ever since 2009, and I have not found any dead Blandings turtles on the road at that area. And you can just imagine how many turtles must have been there before Highway 24 was built, it was probably just teeming with Blanding's turtles. So a positive news story, and that sort of thing needs to be done across the province, and increasingly it is happening, but not fast enough, not extensive enough. And notice too, that was chain link fence. So it's not preventing the frogs and the snakes from getting through. Well, it'd be hard to prevent the snakes, but the frogs can still operate through, or even little tiny turtles could conceivably as well. Long Point, I'll try to move along fairly quickly here. The Long Point Causeway, which some of you are familiar with, I'm sure. The second biggest turtle mortality site in, not Canada, North America, when a study was done a few decades ago. I don't know if that's still the case, but the first site was down in Florida. And you can imagine Florida's turtle haven. But the second site was the causeway. Cars whipping down the causeway, 7 kilometers in distance. There have been measures taken. They have several crossings underneath the road. And they've put fencing up on either side of the causeway. But when I was there last year, much of the fencing had fallen down. Some of the passageways had weeds that completely obstructed the opening. However, just this spring, I've been talking to people who are associated with the Long Point biosphere region, and they tell me that they did a lot of work last summer to repair the fencing and to clear the passages underneath the road. So again, staying with Long Point Causeway, and these pictures were taken last year when I walked the extent of the causeway one way and then back. Interestingly, when you get to the end of the causeway where the cottages are, the speed limit falls to 40 kilometers an hour. But when you get onto the causeway, they have the prudence to raise that to 50. So you can go faster on the causeway where all the turtles are, or most of the turtles, and snakes and on. So they raise the speed limit. And of course, nobody travels 50, or very few people travel 50. They're traveling 70, 80 kilometers an hour. And this just blows my mind. So probably the major single mortality spot for turtles in Canada, and there's no speed bumps. I don't understand it. It is a simple thing to do. We have it in our communities, throughout our communities, and for good reason. But we can't do it for these amazing creatures in this very important wetland. So as I walked last year, I think that's a map turtle, Blanding's turtle, snapping turtle. They were getting through the fence and they're still getting whacked. Not as much as before because much of the fencing was intact. I pulled these Blanding's turtles off the road. But there was a problem with the fencing as well. This is a snapping turtle that was desiccated, dry, and it was just resting against the fence. It couldn't get through the fence to the wetland. So it had come up, presumably, right here where there's a cottage and no fencing. It's walking across the road, it hits the fence. So not only do we need the fencing in a situation like this, but we also need people to go out and patrol and help these creatures over the fence. Map turtle, large rivers and lakes, intolerant of low oxygen levels in the winter, can be astonishingly abundant in some areas of southern Ontario. This is the Grand River, and there might be 40 there. Spotted sandpiper for the birders in the audience. And this is Rondeau Bay. Rondeau, I did a circuit a number of years ago and counted 700, and I wasn't trying. So this turtle is doing well in those large bodies of water, and it doesn't do a lot of wandering on land, which certainly helps it out. I don't know if this is gonna work, but this is Rondo Bay and I might have some video to show or not. Gonna be very choppy. So each one of those is a turtle head. And so Rondo Bay, they need the weed mats to rest on. And there's at least 100 map turtle heads in this video. So places like Rondo, we haven't protected much of the Lake Erie shoreline. Rondo, Long Point, Point Pelee, incredibly important. Seems to be a delay, Marina. Okay, that's where I wanted to go. So this is Rondo again, and kayaking is a great way to do turtle watching. I encourage people to do that. These are all map turtle heads. This is inshore. We need the weeds. You know, a lot of people who have cottages, they want to get rid of the weeds. You know, so they want to be able to swim. They don't want their boat motors to clog. I understand that. But weeds are incredibly important. Water, I shouldn't call them weeds, aquatic vegetation. When I was sitting there, a soft shell reared its head beside a map turtle, and that's a snapping turtle snout there. So Rondo has 7 of the 8 species of turtles in the province. They're baskers, big time, maybe even more so than painted turtles. This one has a ruby spot damselfly on its back, and there's the ruby spot there. They bask when they're very young. This one has found a coconut to bask on, floating in the Credit River. I did a turtle survey back in 2008, 2014, and paddled just about all of the Lake Ontario shoreline wetlands, starting with the Niagara River, all the way to the Presqu'île area. And I tallied map turtles as part of the effort. So you can see where areas of concentration are. I suspect that all these wetlands in Wellington County or Prince Edward County would have lots and lots of map turtles, which I haven't got to. In my area, the greatest concentration is Carroll's Bay at the end of Lake Ontario, the western end of Lake Ontario, around Hamilton, Burlington. And then this is the Grand River. And you can see the abundance of map turtles in there. And I try to keep it standard, so I'd go out on only sunny days, when sunny, warm days when turtles were basking. Many map turtles, some map turtles have malformations. So this one has a clubbed foot. This one is missing its right forelimb, maybe a predator when it went up to land to lay eggs. This one, you can't see it well, but it has a fishing line and its a hook in its mouth. This one has been shot. So I wondered why it did not drop into the water. Somebody took a pot shot at it with a shotgun, bird shot or whatever. Malformed shell. This is up Lake Simcoe Way. And this one has a growth. So I don't know what the causes of the club feet and the growth and the malformed shell, perhaps pollutants, but that's just a guess. This is pretty cool, map turtles in winter. And this information comes to me from Gregory Bolte, professor at Carleton. And he found, they've done research at the Opinacon Field Center at north of Kingston, the Queen's University Research Station, is what I'm trying to say. And they found that the map turtles were active in the wintertime. So they weren't just sitting there doing nothing. They were active in the winter. The males were actively seeking mates underneath the ice in the wintertime. And please don't blame me for this. This is Gregory Bolte's initiative. They made map turtle sex dolls. The females are much bigger than the males. Same with this spiny soft shells. And they wanted to find out, and don't ask me why. They wanted to find out whether the male map turtles would prefer the bigger females. And son of a gun, they found exactly that. So this doll is bigger than this one, and preferentially the males would try to mate with her. I don't know how you write a thesis about that, or. So we're staying at Lake Opinacon where this study was done. And those are dead map turtles.
Oh.
There's a close-up. What happened? What animal is responsible for that? Any guesses?
Raccoon.
Otters. There's the culprit right there. And so the map turtles were spending the winter in a deep part of Lake Opinacon, quite a distance from the shoreline. And the otters were finding them, and they couldn't access the entirety of the animal, but they chewed the limbs off, the tails off, etc. So a natural predatory event, probably, but we might be implicated in this as well, at least in this instant at Lake Opinacon. So it turns out that people who have cottages along the lake use bubblers to protect their docks in the wintertime, bubblers to keep the ice free. So you might be able to see where I'm going with this. The otters can't access the turtles. That's probably why they chose the middle of the lake without being able to get under the ice. Now with the bubblers, and this is just speculation, this has not been proven. Those dock areas are open. They're much closer to what the concentration of the turtles in the wintertime. And the speculation is that perhaps the otters are gaining access under the ice at those dock sites. So again, if that's true, it's us again. So down to my last two turtles, red-eared slider, not a problem. Please, if you harbor any ideas about this being a species of concern because it's introduced. I was at a conference about a month ago, a turtle nesting conference. And I was going to speak out on behalf of the red-eared slider and couch it in the terms that this might make me a pariah among herpetologists. But this creature has been maligned when the four members, presenters at this conference were asked for their impressions of the dangers of the red-eared slider to our native turtle population. And it turned out that each of the commentators, 3 biologists and 1 indigenous woman, had no problem with red-eared sliders in the environment. And I was left with nothing to say. I was going to go to bat for this creature. A few things. They're subject to the same, yes, they have been released. And it's not a good idea to release animals. But the horse is out of the barn, so to speak. They are nowhere, and I've kayaked all over Southern Ontario, nowhere abundant except in our cities, and that makes sense because that's where we release them. They're not going to march like Godzilla across the hinterland and conquer our native turtle habitats. they don't have the wherewithal to do that. We've got roads in their way. We've got all sorts of development in their way. Beyond that, it could be argued that they are now serving a function that in dense urban areas, our native turtles once served, ecological function. They have the audacity, these turtles, to be able to live in Toronto, live in the Don River, live in really sullied environments. And I've got to give them credit for that. So no, this is not something that we need to concern ourselves about. Let's stick to the real threats that are assaulting our turtle populations. And just to speak of the habitat that they can survive in, this is the Grand River in Cambridge. And you're not going to be able to see this, but there's a red-eared slider right there. This is the boom at the base of the Don River. This is what floats down the Don River from our urban area in Toronto. And then finally, the beautiful eastern box turtle, considered extirpated by COSEWIC, which is a federal agency that determines the status of our animals and plants. They can live really long lives, as you're probably aware. They have this astonishing ability to pull every limb into their carapace and close up shop. That undoubtedly allows them to live their terrestrial lifestyle. Really interesting. Where I live in Georgetown, there's an area called Scottsdale Farm. It's an Ontario heritage site, and archaeologists have done studies of Native American middens there, and they found box turtle shells in those middens. And going back to way back 1984, 1983, here's some sightings of box turtles in southern Ontario. And they're not concentrated in cities where people release the red-eared sliders. They're concentrated in the Carolinian zone of Ontario. So they might have existed even up to fairly recent times in the province. Maybe there's still a couple of them out there because they are such long-lived creatures. Could they ever be introduced? Maybe, but there's very little habitat left here, as you know. Maybe Rondeau, maybe Pinery. They hibernate on land. They dig themselves underneath the forest floor. If you have any affinity for turtles at all, two wonderful, wonderful books. Most recently, this one by Cy Montgomery of Time and Turtles. She's a New England nature writer. So a wonderful book that deals with many of the hazards the turtles face. But my all-time favorite is called The Year of the Turtle by David M. Carroll. He is a poetic writer. He's passionate about turtles. He's passionate about their decline. He's passionate about their beauty, passionate about their place in our ecosystem. So highly recommended, both of those books. And finally, with the clicker, this is the final slide. Thank you to everybody. This is my book. It's at the back. I'm not a marketer by any stretch of the imagination. It's a book it's a compendium of nature activities that you can do in your local area. Fairly simple activities like painting moth bait on trees and seeing what the moth bait attracts, or going out to a salamander pond in the springtime. So the book is $20, and perhaps you can, if you choose to buy it, you can give it to the lady at the back. And again, just to reiterate, proceeds go to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center in Peterborough. That's the donations and my speaking fee. Thank you very much, guys.
If I speak, okay, you can hear me right on the Zoom.
Probably not, no.
Oh, yeah, I'll try to speak loud.
Or come get the mic or.
Oh, that's all right, I'll just speak loud. Don, wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna try to be quick in the interest of time, but, I'll reference one experience and then I have a couple that I can comment on.
Sure.
One is, years ago, I was on my way to, Sarnia, and then I go along Highway 80, and I saw what I thought was a briefcase on the road. And one passed, it was a snap, so I wheeled around and pulled over and I was gonna, get it off the road. And before I had the chance, another vehicle pulled over, and a young fellow jumped out, 15 maybe. I thought, oh, this is nice, he's trying to do it for me, so he picked up the turtle and then popped open, and he tossed the turtle in the trunk and slammed the truck.
Oh, good Lord.
So I called, I said, you know, put it back, and his mother leaned out the window, get in, let's go. And up and raced, and he took it. I you know, they said, they're gonna eat it.
Turtle soup.
Turtle soup, so you know, wisely or otherwise, I tried to do what I could do because I had to chase down the road. But you know, I got a piece of license plate with M&R tried to track him down, which I was quite impressed by, but it just sort of showed that a lot of people, you know,
Wow. Yeah.
it was really dismaying. But I have two things. I understand that there's a lot of mortality also caused by regional and municipal practices of cutting grass along roadsides in the spring. June, you see them from the bush cutters and that, and you can get turtles killed, chewed up in the machinery, which seems to be kind of totally unnecessary. And I don't know if there's any kind of effort to communicate to some of these jurisdictions that maybe could be delayed, and could be one positive.
Yeah,
thing
you
to
know,
do.
it's interesting you mentioned that. It's something I really haven't thought of, but you're absolutely right. That would potentially injure and kill turtles, wouldn't it? And I did write an article last year about not cutting road signs or cutting them at different times of year, cutting them after the flowers have bloomed, after they serve the purposes of the pollinators. And there are some steps being taken for that reason, to allow people to enjoy proliferation of wildflowers along the roadside, and then cut later on in season, cut in the fall. But your idea, I think, is something that needs to be looked at as well. Don't cut in June, July.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to be a fairly easy thing to do, and I know there might be some resistance to it because of whether it's safety reasons or otherwise, but it seems to be unnecessary.
Yeah, their argument is line of sight.
Line of sight, things like that.
But on straight roads, you don't need to do it.
And the other thing is kind of related is have you had any input or thought about Highway 413 and how that could be impacting turtle habitat?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that will inevitably destroy habitat, and it will also kill more turtles unless they do some heroic measures to prevent the turtles from making it out on Highway 413. There's been a few good things done up Perry Soundway in the extension of, what is it, Highway 11? Not 11, or where they have overpasses and they have extensive fencing along the edge. So I certainly hope if 413 comes to pass that they pay close attention to that. But undeniably, it will destroy lots of turtle habitat. Definitely.
Our family cottage, that we knew that the turtle nest on the shoreline would get dug out by raccoons. And but you showed in the predators, you showed skunk. So how is skunk, and are there any animals that kill the adult turtles? You know, I wonder how they could do that, because the shelter would be pretty hard.
Yeah, well, I think you saw a couple of images of limbs chewed off. So even a raccoon can kill a painted turtle by biting its head. You know, you can't get the head right inside. So it, at that
that is one way that turtles die.
And skunk does the same thing?
Skunks would be probably more of the nest predators digging up the eggs,
Yeah.
eating the baby turtles, that sort of thing. And there's other predators as well, like crows. Apparently crows and ravens will destroy a lot of young turtles and turtle eggs. Yes, sir.
Which was the turtle that's not low oxygen?
4 of them. So soft shells and nap turtles and snake pots. And what's the other one? Blandings can tolerate low oxygen conditions. But those turtles need lots of oxygen in the winter. The soft shells, the nap turtles, snake pots.
So they have to be near, the my son's got a marshland.
Right.
So there's no stream going through it.
Yeah, so you're not gonna find soft shells there, nap turtles?
That's right. How turtle can survive there.
The turtles that can tolerate anoxic conditions, low oxygen conditions, they could survive there. Blandings turtles, snappers, painted, spotted, although spotted are very rare and dispersed and, yeah.
Can we get a list of those people that are involved in populating areas with turtles? Because he's got a marshland that's fairly new, so I don't think there's any.
Yeah, well, no, these people aren't repopulating different areas. They are releasing the hatchling turtles into the wetland where their mothers came from. So there's prohibitions about moving turtles around. Now, it could be argued that judiciously and with a lot of study that could be done, but it would have to be done by official government biologists, etc. Not people just placing.
So who should he contact then?
Well, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. So he has to hope that they will come. It's a dug wetland. It's a new wetland.
No, it's just that the other areas of the other land is in the areas that were sod farms, and so they're higher up. It's all on the low water, so going down into his.
Right. But turtles are movers. He might be surprised. Snappers and painted might show up of their own accord. They might cross those sod fields. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, does the plant Phragmites have quite an impact on turtles?
Yeah, good question. There is a suggestion that it does, that turtles can actually get caught in amongst the canes of Phragmites. I doubt if it's a big drawdown in the population, but I have heard of that happening. Landing turtles down Walpole Island way, for example, getting stuck in the Phragmites. Yeah.
Compressed field, there's so much of it there.
Yeah, isn't that a lovely thing, eh? And extremely difficult to control, isn't it? Yeah, it's one of the most pernicious of invasive plants. Yeah. Yes, Mark.
Is it suspected that under the ice activity of the map turtles is kind of universal behavior or something unique to that? Like lake?
Well, I think this professor was genuinely surprised when they got the video footage back. That they were active in the winter. Now, they're not rollickingly active, but they are active. And the males, apparently the females don't like the attentions of the males at that time of year. So they'll bury themselves up to their necks. So that the males have difficulty accessing them. But there's activity there.
Would they be using the same oxygenation technique they were doing? How to, like, I'm assuming they're not swimming up to ice.
No, they're not. They're not breathing any open air, but they can absorb a little bit of oxygen through their where the legs meet the bodies, the abdomens, and I think through their anuses and their throat. So they're just getting minute amounts of oxygen, but enough to
power them a little bit in those conditions. But yeah, he was surprised that they were active in the winter time. Okay. Yeah, it's not a settlement.
It's not actually, I kind of want to make just a comment though, because I think this group, if you don't know, will be really interested in other ways you can help. So the Turtle Trauma Center in Peterborough is amazing. They will try and rehabilitate any turtle that we bring in that is not actually dead. And any dead turtles that are females with eggs, they will take those eggs and incubate those eggs. So as Don said, turtles are really resilient. If you're driving by, you take a turtle that's dead on the road, it may not be. Like seriously, I stopped for this snapping turtle. I could not imagine how she could still be alive considering the damage, and it was alive. And I was just like, you poor thing. So whether or not that turtle survived, at least it's not dying, dehydration on the side of the road. But if they're female with eggs, the center will also take those eggs out and they will at least have saved those eggs. So the point is, it's really hard to tell if a turtle is dead. And so even if you find a turtle you think is dead, stick it in a box. And if you contact the center in Peterborough, they have this network of people, I'm one of them, on their turtle taxi list, right? So we get countless emails and they're like, we need people to drive turtles from X to Peterborough. And then later in the summer, they're like, we need people to release turtles from Peterborough to X. And those could be the hatchlings that have come out or turtles that are ready to go back. So both, if you find a turtle and you're able to safely put it in a box somewhere, you don't even have to drive it in. You can contact the center and they will tell you what to do and try and get it in. And then if you're able and willing and have a car and you're bored, go on the, sign up for the emails and you can drive. And you can get to release them later in the year if you're able to do that as well. So two other ways to be involved.
Great stuff, and you guys are near the Turtle Conservation Center. And apparently they've even had turtles flowing in northwestern Ontario. So pilots who will donate their time and money to fly them to this southern Ontario for treatment. Pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Toronto Zoo raised the landings turtles, right?
Right.
Make the eggs. And a few years ago, they had an event. You could sponsor one. I think it was $100. So I adopted one. And they released it in LaRouche Park. And I named it Grafton.
Named it what?
Grafton.
Grafton. Oh, I hope Grafton is doing well.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. Great stuff. Should we close, Maria?
Yeah, I think any other last questions? No, and I have no questions on Zoom, so I think we're.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don. On behalf of our group, we present you with this walking stick here.
Lovely, thank you. I can make use of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Just a reminder, you can make a donation to Turtle Rescue on the way out, so just keep that in mind. So any closing things here? Yeah, just a reminder about our next meeting. That's the members' night. So email will be coming out for that tomorrow. And if you have photos, please submit them. And Sunday's outing, a reminder of that, that's Sculthorpe Marsh. So if you would like to attend that, please use your emails, send to the email address for that.
Yeah, the Willow Beach. You can just show up, but you can also email willowbeachfn@gmail.com to let us know that you're coming.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming.
Awesome.